Welcome to the Canadian Beef Cattle Podcast, presented by the Beef Cattle Research Council. The most popular content from beefresearch.ca, available on the go. Before we get into this week's episode, a quick message from the BCRC.
Are you subscribed to The Wire? BCRC's monthly email newsletter delivers timely updates, seasonal insights, and practical tools for Canadian beef producers right to your inbox. Click the link in the show notes to browse past issues of The Wire and subscribe. This episode is titled Cracking the Heritability Code.
Hi, I'm Kristen Thompson with the Beef Cattle Research Council. Improving the genetics of your beef herd starts with knowing which traits you can improve through genetics and which traits respond better to management practices. Because cattle have a long generational interval, every bull or replacement heifer that you choose will affect your herd for years to come. That's why understanding heritability and how traits interact with each other helps ensure your breeding decisions are moving your herd towards your production goals. But what does heritability really mean? Heritability tells us how much of a trait is controlled by genetics versus the environment and/or management, and it's expressed as a number between 0 and 1. Highly heritable traits are traits that are strongly influenced by genetics, meaning that you can make changes more quickly by selecting the right replacements or bulls. For example, traits such as ribeye area, marbling, or weight and growth traits fall into this category. Moderately heritable traits are those that can be improved through both genetics and management, such as milk production or calving ease. And finally, low heritable traits are those that are mainly influenced through crossbreeding and management decisions. These traits include fertility, reproductive efficiency, and disease resistance. Weaning weight has a heritability of 0.24 to 0.3. What this means is that 24 to 30% of the differences that we see in weaning weights between cattle within a herd is caused by genetics. To see a table summarizing the heritability of common traits, click the link in the show notes. The higher the heritability, the more progress you're going to make with that trait through selection decisions. Traits with low heritability still matter, they just require dedicated management to go along with the genetic decisions. As an example, improving pregnancy rates in beef cattle cannot be achieved through genetics alone. This is primarily due to fertility traits having low heritability and being heavily influenced by management decisions such as nutrition, body condition, health, and breeding season management. Until those areas are optimized, selecting new genetics won't move the needle. In contrast, calving ease is moderately heritable, and information can be used strategically when planning a heifer breeding program. Selecting sires with high calving ease genetics can help to avoid calving difficulties. It is important to remember that traits don't work in isolation. Selection for one trait can cause an increase or a decrease in the expression of another, and sometimes in ways that you don't want. These trait correlations are expressed as a number between +1 and -1. A positive genetic correlation means that as one trait increases, the other also tends to increase. On the other hand, a negative correlation means that as one trait increases, the other tends to decline. Despite the positive and negative labels, neither automatically indicates whether the relationship is actually beneficial. A correlation is considered favorable when selection for one trait leads to a desirable change in another. There is a table in the article that shows examples of some trait correlations, and you can find that link in the show notes. Understanding these relationships helps to avoid unintended consequences. For example, weight and growth traits tend to be positively correlated, so selecting heavily for low birth weights will ultimately lead to smaller heifers that may be more prone to calving difficulties or calves that don't grow as well as desired. Similarly, selecting for large weaning weight or yearling weights will eventually produce bigger mature cows that cost more to feed. These relationships mean that selection decisions should be made with your operations goals in mind. A herd keeping replacement heifers may prioritize balanced growth and moderate mature size, while a cow-calf operation selling all calves at weaning may put more emphasis on growth and weaning weights because they aren't keeping any replacements. Selection indexes can help to simplify genetic decisions by combining several traits into one value that reflects your breeding goals while accounting for these trait correlations behind the scenes. And this makes it easier to avoid unintended trade-offs and helping to prevent single trait selection. Think of a selection index like a financial index. Instead of tracking every single trait or stock on its own, The index combines them into one value based on their economic importance. Like expected progeny differences, or EPDs, indexes are breed-specific, so they cannot be compared across breeds unless the genetic evaluation contains information from several breeds. Knowing which index fits your operation can make bull buying simpler and more profitable. While indexes are extremely useful, they should be used alongside visual appraisal, structural soundness, and good management to make the most informed decisions. Selection indexes typically fall into three main categories. One is all-purpose indexes, and these are best for herds where heifers are kept and steers are marketed for the same calf crop, and they're balanced across both maternal and terminal traits. Some examples include the Canadian Angus Association's Canadian Balanced Index or the Canadian Simmental All-Purpose Index. A second category are maternal indexes, which are designed to build better mother cows and prioritize fertility, milk, and stayability. An example of this is the Canadian Hereford Association's Maternal Productivity Index. And finally, terminal indexes are best used when all calves are sold and none are kept as replacements. These indexes focus on growth, feed efficiency, and carcass traits like marbling and ribeye area. An example of this index is the Canadian Charolais Association's Terminal Sire Index. Building a more productive herd starts with understanding which traits are driven by genetics and which ones respond more to management. Knowing the heritability of key traits and how those traits interact can help to ensure that breeding decisions move your herd in the right direction without creating unwanted challenges.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. You can find all relevant links and information at beefresearch.ca or in the show notes. The Beef Cattle Research Council is funded by the Canadian Beef Cattle Checkoff and strives for excellence in the production of Canadian beef, cattle, and forage through research, innovation, and extension. Tune in every Tuesday as the Canadian Beef Cattle Podcast delivers straightforward insights, expert information, and a wealth of practical knowledge for Canadian beef producers. Subscribe now.